This audiobook will explore how your mind doesn't just reflect the universe, it helps shape it. As you listen, you'll discover how thoughts, perception, and consciousness may be far more powerful than we've ever imagined. The world you see isn't out there. Not exactly. It's in here, inside your head, constructed by billions of neurons firing in perfect synchrony. Light enters your eyes. Yes, but it's your brain that decides what that light means. It paints the sky, carves the faces of those you love, assigns color, depth, and movement to everything. Your mind is not a passive observer. It's a builder, a projector, a translator of invisible forces into a visible world. Imagine you're walking through a forest. The trees are tall, the air cool, the wind stirring, the leaves. But what you're actually experiencing is a simulation created by your brain. Light, sound, scent. They're signals. And your mind, like a skilled composer, turns them into music you can understand. This is the mirror inside your skull. It does not reflect the world. It generates it. Every time you open your eyes, you're not seeing reality. You're seeing your brain's best guess at what reality might be. And this guess isn't objective. It's shaped by memory, emotion, attention, culture, even belief. The more we study the brain, the more we realize perception is not the end result of sensing. It is a creative process from the beginning. We think we see with our eyes, but eyes are merely sensors. The real act of seeing, of experiencing, happens in the dark, silent folds of the mind. Even time and space are not fixed coordinates, but experience is filtered through consciousness. What you call now is a brief echo of something already past. Your brain delays reality by fractions of a second to make sense of what's incoming. In other words, you never live in the present. You live just behind it. And yet, that sliver of delay is your universe. Your brain filters out what it deems unimportant. It edits the world to keep you focused, functional, and safe. But in doing so, it also hides much of what exists. You see only a fraction of what's there. Invisible colors, sounds too low or high to hear, dimensions beyond the ones we're taught. These may all be part of a universe too vast for the default settings of the human mind. So what happens if you change those settings? If you change what you focus on, if you change what you believe is possible, does the universe itself begin to shift? The answer might not be out there. It might be in here, because your perception is not just a result of your brain, it's shaped by your attention. And attention is not a neutral spotlight, it's a sculptor. It chisels meaning from chaos. It turns randomness into pattern, static into signal. And the more you focus on something, the more your mind begins to weave it into the story of your life. The story becomes belief, and belief begins to bend your reality. You've felt this before. The way a bad mood colors the whole day, the way joy makes everything sparkle, the way grief makes time stretch. These aren't just emotional states. They're altered universes, stitched together by your brain, in real time. Your reality isn't fixed. It's fluid, and you are the narrator. Consider the placebo effect. A sugar pill, with no active ingredients, creates real healing in the body, not because of chemistry, but because of belief. The mind decides the body will heal, and so it begins to do just that, not through magic, but through the release of real biochemicals, real cellular changes, real shifts in biology, triggered by a single expectation. This will help. It's one of the most profound clues we've ever been given. Your thoughts don't stay locked in your head, they ripple outward, into your body, into your choices, and perhaps, into the very matter of the universe. Scientists once assumed consciousness was a side effect of brain activity, a background noise, nothing more. But now, some wonder if it's the other way around. What if consciousness isn't a byproduct of matter, but the source of it? What if matter emerges from mind? The mind doesn't just process reality, it might be reality's author. Think of a mirror. When you look into it, you see a version of yourself, but the mirror does nothing on its own. It only reflects. Your mind is different. It doesn't reflect. It interprets, edits, filters, constructs. It fills in the gaps. It tells you where you end, and the world begins. But that boundary, it's an illusion, a helpful one. Maybe. But an illusion all the same. Your mind is not sealed off from the universe. It's woven into it. Particles behave differently when observed. The famous double-slit experiment in quantum physics shows that even tiny particles of light change their behavior depending on whether someone is watching. When not observed, light behaves like a wave, spread out, non-committal. But once measured, once watched, it snaps into place, becomes a particle, picks a position. Observation changes outcome. And what is observation, if not mind? The implications are staggering. Your awareness, your quiet, invisible act of paying attention, might be participating in the very creation of reality, not metaphorically. Literally, you might be collapsing infinite possibilities into one, simply by being aware. This doesn't mean you can think a car into existence, but it does suggest that your inner world is not as separate from the outer world as we once believed. Thought and matter may be linked. Intention may have weight, and the boundaries between your private inner world and the cosmos beyond the stars might be thinner than we ever imagined. So what does that mean for your life? It means you're not powerless. It means you're not just a speck floating in space. You are a participant in the unfolding of reality. Not the only participant, but a crucial one. Your fears, your dreams, your ideas, they're not meaningless. They are part of the equation. And it all begins with what you choose to notice. Because the mirror inside your skull isn't just reflecting the universe, it's shaping it. Your brain is made of roughly 86 billion neurons, each one capable of connecting to thousands of others. These connections, called synapses, aren't random. They form patterns, networks, pathways, and those pathways form the foundation of your thoughts, your feelings, your habits. But these patterns aren't just electrical, they're stories. The human brain doesn't merely collect information. It organizes it into meaning, into arcs, into timelines. That's how it makes sense of the chaos. We don't remember data, we remember narratives. You don't think in binary code, you think in cause and effect. In characters and motives. In beginnings, middles, and endings. This is the architecture of the mind, and without realizing it, you've been building the story of you since the moment you became aware of yourself. But here's the twist. Your story isn't neutral, it's edited. It's biased. It's deeply emotional. Every experience you've ever had, every failure, success, heartbreak and breakthrough, gets folded into the ongoing narrative of who you are. But you don't remember those experiences with perfect accuracy. You remember the feeling they gave you, and that feeling becomes the frame. If you were hurt and left alone, your mind might craft a story. I can't trust anyone. If you tried something once and failed, it might say I'm not good at that. If you were praised for staying quiet, the story might go, it's safer to not speak up. These stories feel like truth, but they're just interpretations, and interpretations can be rewritten. That's the power of the human brain. It's not fixed. It's plastic. Neuroplasticity means your brain can reshape itself. New thoughts can create new connections. New connections can form new patterns. And new patterns can give birth to entirely new stories. This is not poetic. It's biological. When you have a thought, your neurons fire. If you repeat that thought often enough, the pathway becomes stronger, faster, more automatic. It becomes easier to think that way. Like a trail through the woods, walk it enough times and it becomes a road. This is how habits are formed, not just in behavior, but in belief. If you've been telling yourself a story of limitation, of fear, of smallness, those neural pathways are real, but they are not permanent. You can blaze a new trail. It takes intention. It takes repetition. But it is possible. And with each new path, a new version of yourself begins to emerge. Let's go deeper. Your brain is always trying to make predictions. It craves order. It wants to know what's next. So it builds internal models based on past experience to help you navigate the future. These models aren't always accurate, but they're efficient. If your past experience taught you that people can't be trusted, your brain will scan for signs to confirm that belief, even if evidence to the contrary is all around you. Why? because the brain prefers certainty over truth. It prefers familiarity over possibility. That's why changing your mind, literally, is uncomfortable. It means challenging your models, letting go of old predictions, risking being wrong. But it's worth it, because when you interrupt an old story, you create space for a new one. And stories are how the universe becomes personal. You don't just observe reality, you assign meaning to it. That meaning becomes your compass, your emotional North Star. Two people can live through the same moment and experience it entirely differently. One sees loss, the other sees opportunity. One feels abandoned, the other feels free. It's not the event, it's the interpretation. This is what makes the mind so powerful, not just because it stores memories, but because it narrates them. So what kind of narrator are you? Do you see yourself as a victim, a survivor, a witness, a creator? Do you believe your best moments are behind you or ahead of you? Do you trust that the universe is working with you or against you? Every day, you are adding to the story, with each thought, each choice, each word. And that story doesn't just stay inside, it radiates outward. It affects how you speak, how you move, how you love, how you dream. It shapes what you're willing to try, what you're afraid to lose, what you think you deserve. And here's something else. Your story doesn't just shape your life. It affects the lives of everyone around you. When you shift your narrative from fear to courage, others feel it. When you start believing that you have a voice, your words carry more weight. When you act from a place of worthiness, the world reflects that worth back. You are not just the main character of your story, you are the author. And that means you can edit. You can rewrite. You can begin a new chapter at any time. Of course, there will always be facts you can't change. Events that happened, losses you endured. But the meaning you assign to those facts, that is yours. That is flexible. That is alive. Consider this. Is your current story lifting you up or weighing you down? Does it inspire action or excuse stagnation? Is it based on who you were or who you want to become? You are not bound by the first draft. You are not limited by the chapter you're in. Your brain is wired to evolve, to grow, to rewire. And every time you shift your thoughts, you're not just thinking differently, you're becoming different. And if your mind can evolve, so can your reality. Because your thoughts don't end in your head. They ripple through your nervous system, your body, your actions. They become the words you speak, the choices you make, the energy you carry. And slowly, those choices sculpt the world around you. It begins with a neuron. It becomes a thought, then a belief, then a story, and then a life. You've likely heard the phrase, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Now imagine asking, if no one observes a particle, does it even exist in a specific location? This question isn't philosophical, it's quantum physics, and the answer is stranger than fiction. In the quantum world, particles behave in ways that defy common sense. One of the most famous experiments in modern science, the double-slit experiment, shows us something astonishing. The act of observation changes reality. Here's how it works. Imagine firing tiny particles like electrons or photons at a screen with two slits. If no one observes them, they act like waves. They go through both slits at once. They interfere with themselves, creating a pattern on the wall behind that looks like ripples colliding in a pond. But the moment you observe them, measure them, something changes. They stop behaving like waves. They act like particles. Each one goes through one slit or the other. The interference pattern disappears, all because they were watched. The only thing that changed was the presence of an observer. No extra force, no manipulation, just the act of paying attention. Why? No one fully knows. But what it tells us is profound. The universe behaves differently when observed, which begs the question, what exactly is doing the observing? In the lab, it's a detector, a sensor, a way to measure. But what about consciousness? Could awareness itself be part of the equation? Some physicists and philosophers believe so. They argue that consciousness plays a role in collapsing probability into reality. But until something is observed, it remains in a cloud of possibilities, which could be here or there, this or that. But once observed, it becomes definite. This is called the observer effect, and while it's been hotly debated, one thing is certain. At the most fundamental level, reality is not independent of interaction. And that's where you come in. You are an observer. Every moment of your life, your mind is watching, interpreting, filtering. You're not just noticing reality, you're participating in shaping it. Maybe not in the theatrical way we imagine, manifesting physical objects with your thoughts, but in subtler, more pervasive ways. Your attention directs energy, your awareness narrows infinity down to the few things you can perceive. In a sense, you are collapsing possibility into experience, just like the particles in that experiment. Every time you choose to focus, to notice, to observe, you are drawing from the field of potential and shaping it into something specific. And what you observe changes. This isn't magic. It's not wishful thinking. It's a fundamental dynamic of reality. Even in everyday life, we see echoes of this. When you focus on gratitude, more things to be grateful for seem to appear. When you look for reasons to be anxious, they multiply. When you see beauty, you notice more of it. When you anticipate failure, it becomes easier to find. Your observations don't just reflect reality, they guide it. Not because the world changes instantly to match your thoughts, but because your perception shifts. Your mind begins to scan the environment for matches. You start to act differently, and the world responds to those changes. Let's bring it closer to home. Have you ever been in a conversation where you suddenly felt seen, where the other person's attention was so present, so focused, that you felt more real, more alive than usual? That's the power of observation. It affirms, it activates, it shapes. It doesn't just inform reality, it creates a version of it. Now flip the idea. What happens when you're not observed? When no one listens? When you feel invisible? Reality seems thinner, less meaningful, less real. We are wired to respond to attention, because attention is participation, and participation, at the deepest level, is how the universe unfolds. So let's return to the paradox. If observation collapses possibility into reality, then the observer is not passive. The observer is creative. And if you are an observer, then you are by definition a co-creator. That's a heavy idea. But it's also empowering. It means your awareness matters, not just in some metaphorical feel-good way, but in the very blueprint of how things become real. It means that your attention is a kind of cosmic tool, a sculpting instrument. The more mindful you become of where it goes, the more you shape the life you experience. We often underestimate this power. We think of thoughts as private, as harmless. But in this view, thoughts are directed observation. They are focused consciousness. And consciousness has weight. In physics, some believe that the universe requires observation to exist in a definite way, that without conscious participants, it might remain an unformed probability field, a soup of maybes. Could it be that the universe needs consciousness to take shape? And if so, then your mind is not a side effect of the universe. It's a participant in its unfolding, not an accident, not an afterthought, a partner. This doesn't mean you control everything, but it does mean you influence more than you think. The observer's paradox invites us to rethink what it means to be aware. To treat our attention not as something that just happens, but as something sacred, powerful, even creative. It suggests that life isn't a movie we watch. It's a scene we help direct. The question then becomes, what are you observing? What are you choosing to see? Because in a world made of possibility, observation is the doorway to experience. And you hold the key. When you look around, it feels obvious that you're seeing the real world. The chair, the room, the clouds through the window. Solid, dependable, unquestionably there. But here's a startling truth. What you see is not the world itself. It's a translation, a rendering, a mental hallucination so convincing, you forget it's being constructed inside your head. The light that hits your eyes doesn't carry red or blue or soft. It's just wavelengths, nothing more. Your brain assigns the color. Your brain interprets soft. Your brain gives a name and a meaning to the shapes around you. Reality, then, is not passively received. It's actively formed. Every second, your senses flood your brain with data, but your conscious mind can only process a sliver of it. Less than 0.0000001%. The rest is filtered, edited, tossed aside. Your brain chooses what to show you, and what it shows becomes your reality. But what if your brain's filters are hiding more than they reveal? For centuries, science insisted that the physical world was objective, measurable, independent of the observer. But as our tools got sharper, telescopes, microscopes, particle colliders, we found that the act of observing changes the thing being observed. At the smallest scales of reality, your attention matters. In quantum physics, there is no single fixed reality until it is measured. An electron doesn't have a location until someone checks. A photon doesn't decide whether to act like a wave or a particle until it's observed. What does this mean? It means the universe isn't sitting out there, waiting to be seen. It unfolds as it's watched. Reality, in other words, isn't a static landscape. It's interactive. And you are part of the interface. This is not science fiction. This is the cutting edge of physics, consciousness studies, and philosophy. The notion that the mind plays a role in shaping reality is no longer confined to spiritual teachings or poetic metaphors. It's a real, testable question. What role does the observer play? What happens to the universe when no one is looking? Let's go deeper. You've probably heard the phrase seeing is believing, but the reverse is often more accurate. Believing is seeing. Your expectations shape your perception. If you're told a wine is expensive, it tastes even if it's cheap. If you expect pain, you'll feel more of it. If you expect people to be unkind, your brain highlights moments that confirm it. This is not just psychology, it's neurology. Your mind filters reality through belief. It tunes into certain frequencies and dials others down. Just like a radio doesn't invent music, it selects from waves already in the air. Your mind selects from an infinite field of possibility. The question is, which station are you tuned to? You live in a sea of potential, but your experience of that potential is guided by invisible software, your mindset, your culture, upbringing, traumas, desires. They act as settings. They determine what version of reality you see. Imagine walking into a room with 100 people. You don't talk to all of them. You notice one face, one expression, one interaction. And in that moment, your entire reality becomes that. Maybe it's a smile. Maybe it's a scowl. Either way, it colors the moment. And that moment becomes memory. And that memory becomes the story you tell yourself about the world. But what if you had noticed a different face? The truth is, there is no single objective experience. There is only your experience, shaped by countless choices, most of them unconscious. Let's consider time. You think of time as a straight line, past, present, future, but your brain doesn't experience it that way. Time speeds up when you're distracted, slows down when you're afraid, vanishes when you're immersed, and stretches when you reflect. Neurologically, time is elastic. It bends to mood, attention, memory, even novelty. Time is not a ruler, it's a feeling. And what about space? Space feels external. The world seems out there. But studies in neuroscience reveal something strange. Your brain constructs space internally. It doesn't place you in space, it places space around you. Everything you see is projected into a model built inside your skull. That model is so precise, so immersive, you forget it's a simulation. You feel located somewhere, but your experience of out there is actually happening in here. So what does this mean? It means reality, as you know it, is subjective. It means the world you think you're living in is a version of the world filtered, shaped, and delivered by the mind. But it also means something empowering. You are not a prisoner of that version. You can change it when you shift your thoughts, When you adjust your focus, when you challenge a belief, you alter the model, you retune the signal, you see with new eyes. And when that happens, the world itself seems to change. But it's not the world, it's you. This is how transformation begins, not with a magic wand, but with a shift in perception. Think of the placebo effect again. Belief alters biology, but the reverse is true too. Despair can suppress healing. Fear can blind you to opportunity. Worry can turn mere possibilities into looming threat. Your internal state doesn't just color your outer world, it sculpts it. This isn't just psychology, it's physics, it's chemistry, it's reality. What you expect, you perceive. What you perceive, you react to. And your reaction feeds back into your expectations. It's a loop, a powerful, invisible feedback system that shapes your life every day. So, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what are you expecting right now from yourself? From the people in your life? From the universe? Are your expectations small? Are they shaped by fear? Are they second-hand borrowed from others, inherited without question? Or are they alive with possibility? Because here's the truth. You don't see the world as it is. You see it as you are. If you want to see differently, be differently. Think differently. Believe differently. And the world will begin to respond. Not because it's magic, but because your mind has changed its lens. In this way, your inner world doesn't just influence reality, it defines it. So as you listen further, remember this: the most powerful shift you can make isn't outside, it's inside. The world you see is not the only one available. There are infinite versions, infinite interpretations, infinite responses, and the key to unlocking them is in your mind. You wake up, and the world feels out there. The walls, the floor, the trees outside your window. You stretch your arms and feel the edges of your body, the borders that tell you where you end, and everything else begins. It's so convincing, so deeply familiar. But that feeling that you are separate from the world is an illusion, a useful one, but still an illusion. From the time we are born, we're trained to believe in division. Subject and object, me and you, self and other. But the more we study consciousness and physics, the more we realize those lines are not as clear as we think. In fact, they might not be real at all. Let's begin with something simple: breath. You inhale, and suddenly the air that was once out there is now inside your lungs. Oxygen flows into your blood. It fuels your cells. It becomes part of you. A few moments later, you exhale, and what was once you re-enters the world. Where do you end? Exactly. You are not a closed system. You are a process, a flow, a dance of matter and energy in constant exchange with everything around you. Now zoom in further down to the quantum level. At the smallest scales of reality, particles don't have defined locations. They exist in probabilities, in blurred states. But when two particles interact, they become entangled, so deeply connected that the state of one instantly affects the other, even across great distances. This isn't theory, it's been measured, tested, confirmed. Entanglement tells us that the universe is not made of isolated bits. It's a web, a field, a whole. And if everything is connected at the quantum level, what does that say about you? It suggests that the boundaries you feel between your body and the world, your mind and others, may be more psychological than physical, more perceptual than fundamental. In other words, you are not separate from the universe. You are part of it, not like a puzzle piece, more like a wave within the ocean. This is more than poetic language. It's supported by science. Your body is made of atoms that were forged in ancient stars. Your brain is made of the same elements that form galaxies. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, these were born in the hearts of supernovas. You are the universe, looking back at itself. But the illusion of separation is strong. It's reinforced every day. We talk about my life, my thoughts, my body, as if these are things we own. But ownership requires separation. And what if there is none? What if your thoughts arise not just from the isolated folds of your brain, but from your participation in the field of everything? Let's look at consciousness. No one knows exactly where consciousness comes from. Some believe it emerges from the brain alone, but others propose a radical idea that consciousness is not in the brain, but filtered through it. That the brain is like a radio tuning into a frequency that is already present in the fabric of reality. In this view, you are not creating consciousness, you are receiving it, participating in it, localizing a larger awareness into the particular experience of being you. That's true, then your consciousness is not cut off from others. It is not sealed behind skin and bone, it is part of a larger shared field, one that connects all sentient beings, perhaps all of life. This would explain so much intuition, empathy, the strange sense of knowing when someone you love is in trouble, even across the globe. It would suggest that your inner life is not just your own, that your thoughts ripple outward, that your intentions matter, not just to you, but to the world. When you walk into a room and feel the mood shift, when someone's joy lifts you, when another's sorrow weighs you down, these aren't accidents. They are signs that separation is thin, that what we do, think and feel affects others, even when no words are spoken. It also means that healing is never isolated. When you heal your mind, you change how you move through the world. When you change how you move, you affect those around you. And when enough individuals shift, collective patterns begin to change, like waves rising in rhythm, one after another. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a choice. We can live as if we are islands, alone, responsible only for ourselves. Or we can live as if we are threads in a vast fabric, where every action pulls on another, every thought leaves a trace, every moment echoes, because the illusion of separation keeps us small. It breeds fear, competition, isolation. But the truth of connection breeds compassion, courage, expansion. You are not alone in your joy. You are not alone in your pain. You are not other from the world. You are of it. Even your sense of self, your I, is not fixed. It shifts depending on mood, context, memory. Who you are is not a static object, but a fluid process. A story told moment by moment in relation to everything else. And that story can grow. You can expand your identity beyond the body, beyond the mind, to include the people you love, the animals you cherish, the trees that line your street, the stars that light your sky. This isn't just spiritual metaphor, it's a reflection of what science is slowly discovering. The world is not made of separate things, it is made of relationships. And relationships are not borders, they are bridges. So the next time you feel small, disconnected, or lost, remember, the breath in your lungs was once the wind across a mountain. The atoms in your bones once belonged to oceans and stars. The mind inside your head is connected, in ways we don't yet fully understand, to the vast unfolding of the cosmos. There is no clear line between self and universe, only a shifting, shimmering illusion. And when you see through it, even for a moment, you begin to remember who you really are, not a fragment, not a fluke, but a participant in something vast, alive, and deeply connected. Your thoughts feel like whispers in your mind, passing, fleeting, often unnoticed. But they are not random. They follow paths. They obey structure. They build upon each other, layer by layer, like bricks in an invisible cathedral. There is an architecture to your thinking, and like any structure, it can be designed with care, or built by default. At its core, thought is electrical and chemical. Neurons fire, signals travel across synapses, but these aren't isolated sparks. They form patterns, networks, routes that your brain begins to favor the more you use them. Thoughts you repeat become easier to think. Emotions you indulge become more automatic. Beliefs once tentative harden into structures. And those structures shape everything. Your sense of self, your ideas about the world, your expectations, fears, desires, and assumptions, all of them rest on an inner architecture, one that can expand or trap you. Let's begin with a simple example: belief. A belief is not just a thought, it's a repeated thought that has become structural. It acts like a beam in the building of your mind. Other thoughts attach to it. Whole frameworks depend on it. So if that belief is "I am not enough," then every new experience is filtered through that frame. Compliments are dismissed. Opportunities are downplayed. Criticism cuts deeper. The belief shapes perception, and perception shapes behavior, which in turn reinforces the belief. This is the blueprint of a loop, and unless interrupted, loops become cages. But belief can be restructured. When you start to question a belief gently, curiously, you loosen its hold. When you challenge it with evidence, it weakens. When you replace it with a more empowering thought and repeat that thought, new neural pathways begin to form. These new paths become easier to travel, and soon the old belief collapses, not with violence but with disuse. The brain, after all, is not fixed. It is plastic, moldable, responsive, and that means the architecture of your thoughts is not a prison, it's a project. You are the builder. Let's look at how thought becomes identity. Every time you think, I'm the kind of person who, you lay a foundation. Maybe it's, I'm always anxious, or I never finish what I start, or I'm terrible with people. These aren't just descriptions, they're blueprints. And once you accept them, you begin to live inside them. You begin to reinforce them through behavior, relationships, even posture. But identity is not set in stone, it's more like scaffolding. You can climb it, dismantle it, rebuild it. It starts with awareness. Begin noticing your default thoughts, not with judgment, with curiosity. What loops do you repeat? What beliefs do you quietly serve? What labels do you wear, not because you love them, but because they feel familiar? The moment you bring awareness to a pattern, you begin to reclaim choice. Thoughts are not facts, they are suggestions, they are tools. And like any tool, they can build or break. They can carve new doors in old walls, or they can seal them shut. It depends on how you use them. Let's move outward now from belief and identity to the larger framework, worldview. Your worldview is the master architecture of thought. It's the lens through which you interpret reality. Some people live inside a worldview of fear. Everything is a threat, a trick, a trap. Others live in a framework of scarcity. There's never enough of time, love, money, worth. And others live in a world of possibility. Challenges are growth, failure is feedback, change is opportunity. Same world, different architecture. Your worldview is not inherited, it's assembled, from culture, upbringing, language, education, trauma, and triumph. But none of these inputs are final. You can audit your worldview. You can notice where it constricts you, where it keeps you small, and you can begin to rebuild. How? Start with new thoughts. Just one. Repeated gently. I'm learning to trust. I'm allowed to change. This moment can be different. I am safe, even when uncertain. These are not mantras, they are bricks. Each time you think a thought like this, you're laying a piece of new architecture. It may feel shaky at first, but every repetition adds strength. Every moment of mindfulness reinforces the structure. And over time, you begin to live in a different mental space, one with more light, more room, more clarity. Let's be honest, some of your current thought structures were built in survival. They served a purpose. They kept you safe, alert, vigilant. But survival is not the same as peace, and structures meant for war often become prisons in peace. It's okay to outgrow the walls you built to protect yourself. It's okay to want more space in your mind, because here's the truth. Your thoughts are not just echoes. They are scaffolds, bridges, walls, windows. They shape your entire experience. Not just of yourself, but of the world, and the world you live in, your inner world, becomes the stage for how you engage with life. The architecture of thought determines the architecture of your actions. If you believe you are loved, you act with openness. If you believe the world is against you, you prepare for battle. If you believe you are capable, you take steps into the unknown. If you believe you are helpless, you freeze. Change the thought, change the design, change the life. This doesn't mean every thought needs to be positive. It means your thoughts need to be conscious, aligned, chosen. Because left unattended, your mind will default to what is easiest. The oldest neural highways, the most rehearsed beliefs, the most familiar emotional states. But with attention, you can rewire, you can reframe, you can redesign the invisible architecture of your inner world. And slowly, watch the outer world begin to reflect those changes. So pause here and ask yourself, what kind of mental space do I live in? Does it feel spacious or crowded? Safe or tense? Inspired or drained? You don't need to demolish the whole structure today. You just need to begin. A single thought can be a doorway. A new belief can be a window. And with every step, you reclaim not just the architecture, but the role of architect. What if your thoughts don't just stay in your head? What if the silent inner monologue, the doubts, the hopes, the quiet affirmations you whisper, only to yourself, somehow ripple out into the fabric of reality? It's a strange idea, almost too poetic for science, and yet more and more researchers, philosophers and spiritual thinkers are beginning to suggest your mind may be more than private. It may be participatory. Let's begin where science meets subtlety. Frequency. Every thought you think creates a pattern of neural activity. That activity isn't silent. It produces measurable, electromagnetic waves. Your brain is constantly pulsing, sometimes in low, dreamy theta waves, other times in sharp, focused beta rhythms. It hums like a radio tower, broadcasting signals into your body and into the surrounding field. Now consider this. If your thoughts carry vibration, then like any vibration, they interact with other fields. Just as a singer's voice can shatter a glass or tune harmoniously with another note, your mental frequencies may be quietly harmonizing or clashing with the world around you. Still abstract? Think of it this way. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the atmosphere change, without anyone saying a word? Have you sensed when someone's energy was heavy, even if their face was calm? That's not magic. It's perception, and it suggests that thought, feeling, and presence extend beyond the boundaries of skin. You've probably heard the saying, your vibe attracts your tribe. But what if it's more than metaphor? Let's turn to heart science. The Heart Math Institute has shown that the human heart produces a powerful electromagnetic field, stronger than the brain's, and that emotions like love, gratitude, and peace actually expand this field. When people are in coherent states aligned in mind, body, and breath, their heart rhythms sync, their brain waves become more ordered, and nearby systems, including those of others, begin to synchronize. In other words, your internal state affects the field around you. So, what happens when you think, when you focus, when you imagine? What happens when you speak your desires silently into the atmosphere, or hold a vision in your mind until it begins to feel real? Could the universe be listening, not with ears, but with resonance? Some believe that reality itself is a vast informational field, a matrix of possibility, shaped not just by physical laws, but by attention and intention. In this view, your consciousness is like a tuning fork, vibrating within the field. When your thoughts become coherent, when your energy aligns with your desire, you don't force the universe, you invite it. You tune yourself to the possibility. This is not about magical thinking. It's about alignment. Just as a surfer doesn't create the wave, but must be in position to ride it, your thoughts may not create outcomes directly, but they place you in alignment with certain outcomes. They make you ready to act, to see opportunities, to meet the moment. And yes, maybe, just maybe, they ripple into the field in ways we don't yet understand. Many spiritual traditions speak of this idea. In prayer, in intention, in meditation. They suggest that when you hold a clear thought in a deep emotional state, that thought becomes creative. It echoes into the invisible. It stirs something in the unseen. And then, things begin to shift. You get a call you weren't expecting. An idea arrives fully formed. The problem begins to resolve, without direct effort. Not because you forced reality, but because you participated in shaping it. Could it be that the universe is not passive, that it responds not to wishes, but to coherence? Coherence between thought and feeling, between desire and action, between who you are and what you seek. This doesn't mean you get everything you think about. The universe is not a vending machine, but it may be a mirror, a highly intelligent, highly responsive mirror, not instant, not predictable, but real. And the mirror doesn't reflect your conscious words alone, it reflects your true state. If you think abundance but feel fear, what are you really vibrating? If you speak love, but carry resentment, what are you actually offering the field? To shape the universe, your signal must be clear. And clarity comes not from shouting louder, but from alignment. When your thoughts, Emotions and actions begin to harmonize. You move differently. You carry presence. You radiate steadiness. You begin to notice that life flows more smoothly, not without challenge, but with more rhythm, more synchronicity, more invisible support. Some would call this spiritual, others might call it energetic or psychological. But labels aside, the experience is real. What you focus on tends to grow. What you believe, you begin to see. What you hold in your mind, you start to move toward. So now the question is, what are you broadcasting? What mental signals are you sending into the field? Are you transmitting gratitude or lack, peace or tension, hope or defeat? You can't fake it. The universe doesn't hear words. It hears frequency. And frequency comes from truth. So if you want to shape the universe, begin not with desire, but with resonance. Begin with becoming the version of yourself who already lives in alignment with what you seek. Not someday. Now. Not out there. In here. Because the world responds not just to effort, but to coherence. Not just to goals, but to energy. And the energy of your thoughts, when focused, when emotionally grounded, when held with integrity, can become a powerful force. Maybe not loud, maybe not flashy, but unmistakable. You've felt it before, that quiet certainty, that sense that things are aligning, that you are on the path, that what once felt far is now within reach. That's not luck. That's frequency. That's thought becoming form. So speak gently to yourself. Hold your desires with respect. Think clearly, feel deeply, and walk with consistency. Because the universe is not separate from you. It's listening. You open your eyes, stretch your limbs, and slowly rise from sleep. The dream fades, and the world of the real returns. Or so it seems. But what if the waking world isn't as different from the dream as we believe? What if, in fact, you've never stopped dreaming, only shifted layers? Every night, as your body rests, your mind slips into a world entirely of its own design. People appear, landscapes form, emotions rush, and within the dream it all feels real, until you wake. That moment of waking comes, with a quiet certainty. That was just a dream. But what if waking life is just another dream, one with more consistent rules? Lucid dreamers know this feeling well. In a lucid dream, you become aware that you are dreaming, and in that awareness, something magical happens. You gain influence. You can fly, shape the scenery, speak with intention, move through impossible landscapes with ease. Lucid dreaming reveals a deeper truth about the mind. It is the dreamer, the architect, the experiencer, and the witness, all at once. Now consider this. How different is waking life really? In waking life, you are also inside a story constructed by the mind. Your senses gather signals. Your brain interprets them. Meaning is layered on top. And you live through it, moment by moment, believing this version of reality to be the real one. But the consistency of rules, gravity, time, touch, does not necessarily make this world more real. It simply makes it more stable. Both dreams and waking life are mental simulations. One is elastic and wild, the other is grounded and structured. But both happen within the field of consciousness. And both rely on a version of you to anchor them. Let's take this further. In dreams you can encounter people, places and ideas that feel external, but they are all projections of your own mind. Similarly, in waking life, many of the meanings you attach to events are also internal projections. That stranger who seemed rude, maybe they weren't. That moment you interpreted as rejection, perhaps it was just misunderstanding. But once your mind constructs a version of events, that version becomes your reality. So even in waking life, we are constantly dreaming, crafting realities inside our heads, assigning meaning, reacting to interpretations. You're dreaming your relationships, dreaming your limitations, dreaming your role in the world. And like in a dream, these versions can be vivid, powerful, emotional, but they're not fixed. They can be changed. The greatest illusion is that this waking life is the only version available. that you are stuck with what you see. But just like in dreams, awareness gives you power. When you become aware of how your thoughts shape your perception, you become lucid in your waking life. You begin to question assumptions. You catch yourself reacting to old patterns. You start to choose rather than repeat. This is the essence of consciousness, not just to experience, but to be aware that you are experiencing. You become both the actor and the audience. This shift can feel subtle, but it is profound. Because most people sleepwalk through life. They follow scripts written by others, parents, teachers, society. They live in inherited dreams, and they never realize they can wake up. But some do. Some begin to question the dream. They sense that there's more to life than appearances, that there's a deeper pattern, a hidden logic, an invitation from reality itself to become more conscious. And when you accept that invitation, the dream begins to shift. Your problems don't vanish, but they change shape. They become challenges rather than traps. Your relationships don't become perfect, but you begin to meet others with presence, not just projection. You begin to notice the stories you're telling yourself and rewrite them. This is not a metaphor. It's a real observable shift in how the brain operates. Studies show that meditation, reflection, and mindfulness can actually change neural pathways. The more aware you become of your thoughts, the less power those thoughts have to control you. You no longer live inside automatic reactions. You live inside conscious choice. That's waking up, and the more you wake up, the more the world becomes lucid. You see patterns you never noticed. You sense connections between things. Coincidences begin to cluster. You start to feel as though the universe is in dialogue with you. Not because the laws of physics have changed, but because you have changed. You've become the dreamer who knows they are dreaming, and when you reach that level of awareness, something else begins to dawn. The dream is not against you. It's trying to teach you. Just as nighttime dreams reflect inner emotions, desires, and fears, waking life reflects your beliefs, your attention, your unresolved questions, the people you meet, the conflicts you face, the things that trigger you. These are mirrors, invitations, opportunities to become more aware of your inner world, so you can reshape the outer one. And perhaps that's the secret behind both dreams and waking life. They are designed not just to entertain or challenge you, but to awaken you. Because when you awaken, you see clearly. You see that your thoughts are not fact, that your fears are not fate, that the world outside is not so separate from the world within. And in that clarity, you begin to steer the dream, not with control, but with consciousness. You stop reacting blindly. You start responding wisely. You stop chasing illusions. You start creating meaning. You stop fearing the dream. You start dancing with it. And maybe that's the real point. Not to escape the dream, but to wake up inside it, to see it for what it is, to play your part with awareness, to shape your experience with intention, because life, like a dream, is fleeting, but consciousness, awareness, it lingers, it remembers, it grows, and in every moment, you have the chance to become a lucid dreamer in the theater of your own life. So the next time you open your eyes in the morning, ask yourself, not just what day is it, but what dream am I in? And more importantly, how will I shape it? You've been taught that the world is made of things, solid, visible, touchable, that your body is matter, that your thoughts are invisible, that the two don't touch. But what if the line between thought and form is not a wall, but a bridge? What if the space between mind and matter is not empty, but full? At the heart of every object, every chair, every tree, every atom in your body is energy. Matter, when examined closely, dissolves into vibration. The particles that make up your cells are 99.999 space, and even the parts that seem solid are in constant motion. We are not made of stuff. We are made of patterns, frequencies, fields, and consciousness might be one of them. Let's start here. Every thought you have is accompanied by a physical change. Neurons fire, chemicals shift, hormones adjust. The thought is invisible, but it creates visible effects. Your body doesn't separate the mind from the world. To your biology, a memory of fear can be as real as the event itself. So if a thought can alter your physiology, why couldn't it alter your experience of the world? Not by bending spoons or defying gravity, but by influencing how you move, how you speak, how you perceive, and ultimately, how the world responds. The mind may not create matter in a direct theatrical sense, but it shapes how matter is engaged. Let's go further. Some researchers believe that consciousness is not in the brain, but through it, that the brain acts more like a receiver than a generator. In this view, mind is not the product of matter. It's a fundamental aspect of reality. In the same way that gravity, light, and magnetism operate as unseen but undeniable forces, consciousness may be a field present everywhere, interacting in ways we barely understand. And between your thoughts and the matter around you, there may be a space, a bridge, where influence happens. This space is not a vacuum. It is potential. In quantum mechanics, potential is the state before something becomes real. A particle exists in all possible states, until observed. Then it chooses. It becomes what decides. Measurement, observation, focus. In everyday life, this is mirrored by intention. What you focus on becomes clearer. What you expect begins to organize. What you act upon gains momentum. Mind influences matter not by magic, but by shaping the lens through which possibilities collapse into outcomes. And that lens is your attention. Now think of this. Your entire experience of the physical world is filtered through your nervous system. Sight, sound, touch. All of it becomes real to you, only after interpretation. There is no direct access to matter. There is only experience, and experience is created in the mind. This doesn't mean the physical world is fake. It means your experience of it is subjective, malleable, shapeable. That's the space between the invisible realm, where thoughts become feelings, feelings become choices, choices become actions, and actions become form. Consider a simple object, a cup. Its usefulness comes not from the material, but from the space inside. The emptiness is what holds the water. In the same way, it's the invisible space between mind and matter that gives your life shape, the pause before reaction, the intention before movement, the meaning before form. This space is where transformation begins. If you've ever changed a habit, you've felt it, that moment of hesitation before you reach for the old behavior, and instead choose something new. That space is everything. It's the birthplace of change, the frontier where thought becomes life. In mindfulness, we're taught to notice this space, to slow down, to observe, not because it's passive, but because it gives access to power. When you enter the space between stimulus and response, you reclaim agency. You stop living on autopilot. You begin living with awareness, and awareness is what allows thought to shape matter consciously, not by default, but by design. There's another space worth noticing, the one between you and others. When you speak to someone, the words you choose, the thoughts behind them, the presence you bring, these shape the interaction, not just emotionally, but physically. Your tone affects their nervous system, your energy affects their mood. Your presence changes the space. That too is the meeting point of mind and matter. We often think of influence as external, but true influence happens in the subtle field between the inner and the outer, between the invisible and the tangible, between idea and embodiment. This is the creative space, the sacred space, the quiet force that lives behind the loud mechanics of the world. It's where inspiration lives, where prayer takes root, where dreams begin to take form, not because you control the world, but because you enter alignment with it. Mind doesn't need to overpower matter. It only needs to align with it. When you hold a clear thought with calm emotion and intentional action, you begin to dance with reality, not fight it. You become a participant in creation, not just an observer. This isn't about controlling everything. It's about realizing that you are not separate from the field of experience. You are woven into it, and your thoughts are not just echoes in your skull, they are signals in the system. So the question is, what are you bringing into the space between your mind and the world, between your thought and your next step, between your fear and your decision. In that space lies your true power, to pause, to choose, to create. Because mind and matter are not enemies. They are partners, and the space between them is where life happens. Stand in front of a mirror, and you see your reflection. Familiar, predictable, silent. But what if the universe itself behaves more like a mirror than we ever imagined? Not a passive one made of glass, but a living, responsive field that reflects your mind, your focus, your energy. In classical physics, reality is fixed, objective. Things exist whether or not you look at them. But quantum physics, where particles behave like waves and observation alters outcomes, paints a stranger, more intimate picture. The world isn't just out there. It's responding to how you observe it. This is the quantum mirror. And you are standing in front of it every moment of your life. Let's return for a moment to the famous double-slit experiment. Fire a single photon at a barrier with two openings, and it behaves like a wave passing through both slits simultaneously, creating an interference pattern on the other side. But add a detector, an observer, and the pattern changes. The photon acts like a particle. It chooses a single path. Observation collapses probability into one outcome. The mirror reflects your gaze. But here's what's profound. This doesn't only happen in a lab. In your everyday life, you also collapse potential into experience through your focus, through your expectations, through your choices. You live in a sea of possibility. And every time you observe, decide, believe, act, you bring a version of that sea into form. This doesn't mean the universe bends to your will like a genie, but it does suggest that your inner state is reflected in the outer world, not always in obvious ways, but in patterns, in relationships, in how people respond to you, in how life feels. When you carry fear, the world feels sharp, closed, dangerous. When you carry gratitude, the world softens, opens, offers. Not because the world changed, but because your mirror did. The quantum mirror doesn't reflect your face. It reflects your frequency. And frequency is determined by thought, emotion, intention. That's why two people can stand in the same room and experience two different realities. One sees beauty, the other sees threat. One feels welcomed, the other feels judged. The difference isn't the room, it's the reflection. This mirror isn't flawless. It's not always instant, but it is responsive. Think of the last time you walked into a new situation with confidence. You smiled, spoke clearly, and others responded with warmth. Not because they knew you, but because they mirrored what you projected. Or the last time you felt unsure, guarded, and noticed how people pulled back, unsure how to meet you. These are subtle but real examples of reflection, of resonance. And the deeper truth is this. You can't hide from the mirror, not with words, not with appearance. The mirror doesn't respond to surface, it responds to signal. If you say, "I'm fine," but carry grief, the mirror reflects the grief. You say, "I'm confident," but feel afraid, the mirror responds to the fear. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but it does mean that being authentic is more powerful than being polished, because the mirror reflects energy, not presentation. So how do you work with this mirror? First, notice what it's showing you, without blame, without shame, just observation. If life feels heavy, tight, repetitive, ask, what am I projecting? If people around you feel distant, ask, am I open? If opportunities feel scarce, ask, am I moving with trust or with fear? The mirror isn't judging you. It's teaching you. It shows you what you believe, especially the things you don't realize you believe. That's the beauty of reflection. It makes the unconscious visible. Your outer world is often a map of your inner world. But the map is not the territory. It can change. When you shift your beliefs even slightly, the reflection begins to change. You believe you are worthy. And suddenly, you notice more kindness. You believe your voice matters. And you begin to speak and be heard. You believe change is possible, and opportunities appear that seemed invisible before. This is not coincidence, it's coherence. The mirror reflects alignment, and alignment begins with inner clarity. What do you really want? What do you really feel? What do you really expect? When these are in harmony, your signal becomes clear, the mirror sharpens, and life begins to respond with more precision, more beauty, more synchronicity. But this mirror isn't just reactive, it's collaborative. The universe is not just showing you what you are, it's helping you become more of who you're meant to be. Every challenge is a reflection. Every gift, a signal. Every delay, a redirection. You are not a spectator in this universe. You are seen, felt, mirrored. And when you begin to live as if that's true, you begin to move with intention, with curiosity, with reverence. Not because you control the mirror, but because you honor it. You polish it with honesty. You adjust your posture. You carry thoughts like sacred tools. You speak into the field with care, not because you fear what it might reflect, but because you respect it. The quantum mirror is always here. Quiet, present, patient, waiting not for you to be perfect, but for you to be aware. Because once you are, you stop fearing the reflection. You start working with it, you stop reacting blindly. You start choosing clearly, and in that moment, something shifts. Not just in the mirror, but in you. You become the reflection you wish to see. You become the signal you long to receive. You become the energy that calls life forward. And the mirror responds. Your mind is always anticipating. Even now, as you listen, it's predicting what words might come next, what ideas might follow. This isn't just habit. It's how your brain is wired. It's a survival feature. Your brain tries to predict outcomes, so it can prepare. But here's the twist. What you expect doesn't just shape your reaction. It may shape reality itself. Expectations are not empty thoughts. They influence perception, behavior, mood, and even physiology. And when carried consistently, they send a message, not just inward, but outward, as if the universe or reality itself somehow aligns with what you anticipate most. Let's begin with the basics. Perception. When you expect to see something, your brain becomes more likely to notice it. This isn't magic. It's neurobiology. Your brain filters billions of bits of information every second, and it relies on expectations to decide what matters. If you expect rejection, you notice the frown. If you expect kindness, you catch the smile. If you expect failure, you feel the smallest setback as confirmation. If you expect success, you interpret the same setback as growth. The world you see is not raw data, it's a filtered feed curated by your beliefs. This is the power of expectation. It's not just passive, it's directive, but it goes deeper than perception. Expectation shapes behavior. When you anticipate something, your actions align with it, even unconsciously. If you expect a relationship to fall apart, you might become guarded, distant, less vulnerable. And that behavior may lead the relationship to weaken, just as you predicted, not because you saw the future, but because you helped create it. The same applies in reverse. When you expect connection, you lean in, you soften, you listen, and those actions increase the chance of real connection. This is the feedback loop. Your expectations affect your actions affect outcomes, and outcomes reinforce your expectations. That's how a belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It happens in relationships, in work, in health, in self-worth. And over time, the cycle becomes so familiar, you stop noticing it. You assume the world simply is a certain way. Unfair, kind, harsh, generous. But what if much of what you call reality is really just expectation made visible? Now let's take it to the body. In medical science, we see the power of expectation clearly in the placebo effect. A sugar pill, with no active ingredient, can produce real healing because the person believes it will. That belief sets off a cascade of chemical reactions, pain relief, immune response, even cellular repair. Why? Because expectation tells the body what to prepare for. The brain believes healing is coming, so it begins to act as if it's true. But the reverse also happens, the nocebo effect. When someone expects harm, even harmless substances can produce negative effects. Fear becomes illness, worry becomes pain. This tells us something vital. Your expectations are not neutral. They are powerful instructions. Instructions to your body, to your mind, and if consciousness does interact with reality, perhaps instructions to the universe itself. Now pause. Think of what you're expecting from your life right now. Are you expecting progress or stagnation? Love or loss? Breakthrough or more of the same? Whatever you expect, you begin to prepare for it. You begin to notice signs that it's coming. You begin to act in ways that invite it. Slowly, quietly, your whole system begins to align with what you believe is most likely. But here's the secret. What you expect is often what you believe you deserve. And what you believe you deserve is rarely based on truth. It's shaped by history, upbringing, experiences, and old narratives that may no longer serve you. So before you change your life, you may need to change what you're expecting. And before you change your expectations, you may need to change your sense of worth. Because when you expect good things, not from entitlement, but from alignment, you move differently. You don't chase. You don't beg. You prepare. You trust. You invite. And the universe responds. Not because expectation guarantees outcome, but because it changes you. It changes how you show up. It changes what you're available for. It changes what you're willing to receive. Some people expect failure so deeply, they sabotage success the moment it arrives. Not consciously, but through subtle choices, hesitation, self-doubt, avoidance. Others expect joy, and even when struggle comes, they look for the meaning, the growth, the return, and because they expect it, they find it. This is not about delusion, it's about intention. You're not pretending life is perfect. You're choosing to expect that good can come, even through difficulty, that beauty is possible. That change is real. That growth is available. That you are allowed to receive. And as you choose that expectation, you begin to change your posture toward life. You become open, not closed. Responsive, not reactive. Courageous, not cautious. And that posture, that state of being, is what invites new outcomes. This is why expectation matters. Because it's not just about what's coming, it's about how you meet what comes. When you expect alignment, you begin to move with it. When you expect kindness, you begin to extend it. When you expect love, you become a space where love is possible. And in a universe where your inner world shapes your experience, this shift in expectation is no small thing. It's a tuning, a calibration, a silent invitation whispered into the field. So today, ask yourself gently, what am I expecting? From myself, from others, from life? And if the answer feels small, expand it. Not because you're entitled, but because you're aware. Aware that thoughts have power. Aware that expectation is a lens. Aware that your life may be reflecting not what is fixed, but what is familiar. And when you change the familiar, the possible begins to shift. There's something quiet but powerful that follows you everywhere you go. Something that minute by minute, hour by hour, determines the shape of your experience. It's not your job, not your past, not your talent or luck. It's your attention. Attention is more than focus. It's the act of choosing, of saying, this matters now, and what you choose to give your attention to becomes your reality. Where attention goes, energy flows, and where energy flows, life begins to respond. You may not notice it, but your attention is shaping everything. It filters your experience, it fuels your emotions, it becomes your habits, and over time, it builds the story you call your life. Think about this. Two people walk into the same room. One notices the warmth of the lights, the comfort of the chairs, the friendliness in the air. The other notices the noise, the dust in the corners, the one person who didn't say hello. Same room, different experience. The only difference? Attention. Your attention doesn't just observe your world, it selects it. You live in a sea of potential, but you can only experience what you choose to notice. And most of that choosing happens unconsciously. Your mind is constantly scanning, filtering out the unimportant to focus on what it deems relevant. The challenge is, your mind was trained by your past. It selects based on memory, trauma, belief, culture, whatever you've practiced seeing, you'll see more of. This is why negative thoughts spiral, why anxiety feeds itself, why joy can sometimes feel like it hides. It's not that joy is gone, it's that attention has been tuned elsewhere. But the beautiful thing about attention? It's movable. It's a dial, a tuner, and you hold it in your hands. Right now you can choose to notice your breath, the way your chest rises, the sound of your surroundings, the feeling of being alive in this moment. You just changed your experience. Not by changing the world, but by shifting your attention. This is subtle, but it's powerful. Because attention doesn't just determine what you feel, it determines who you become. Give your attention to fear, and fear grows. Give it to hope, and hope strengthens. Give it to judgment, and the world seems cruel. Give it to wonder, and the world comes alive. You are always tuning reality like a radio, and there are countless frequencies all around you. Love, grief, possibility, despair, creativity, anger. You don't create them, but you do choose which one to tune into. So the question becomes, what are you tuning into? Daily, hourly, right now? Not in theory, in practice. What stories are you replaying? What images are you feeding your mind? What voices do you let shape your day? What feelings do you hold on to longer than needed? Attention is not just internal, it's active, it's energy. And in a responsive universe, your attention acts like a magnet, subtly, steadily pulling into your experience what matches its frequency. This isn't superstition, it's observation. Think of attention as light. Wherever you shine it, life grows. Shine it on pain, and pain expands. Shine it on gratitude, and even struggle begins to shimmer. Shine it on truth, and illusions start to fade. You don't need to fake positivity. You just need to become intentional. Be deliberate about where you place your awareness. Even when you feel overwhelmed, you still have this choice. What will I give my energy to right now? It may be as small as one breath, one kind thought, 1 second of presence. But in that second, the whole pattern begins to shift. Your biology responds, your nervous system softens, your perception widens, and the universe quietly adjusts with you. In many spiritual and scientific traditions, attention is sacred. Meditation, prayer, breathwork. These are not escapes from reality. They are practices in attention. They train the mind to return again and again to what is real, steady, clear, and as your attention strengthens, so does your power. The power to choose how you respond, the power to see possibility where you once saw limits, the power to reshape your story, not by erasing the past, but by rewriting your relationship with it. Because the truth is, your life isn't shaped by what happens, it's shaped by what you attend to. You've likely heard this before, but have you felt it? Have you felt how a single shift in focus can change the mood of a day? How noticing beauty, even in hardship, can soften your heart? How choosing to dwell in love, even when it hurts, keeps you connected to what's true? That is the work of attention. It is the daily quiet choice to tune your awareness to what matters most, not just for performance, not for control, but for alignment, for clarity, for coherence. Because when your attention aligns with your highest values, your life begins to move with grace. You speak more truth. You hold more space. You act from intention instead of habit. And the world responds, not because it was waiting for you, but because you finally tuned to the part of it that's been calling your name all along. So tune wisely, not perfectly, not rigidly, just consciously, because your attention is the most powerful creative tool you have, and it's always with you, quietly, patiently, shaping everything you see. It starts small. A thought about someone, and they call, a problem arises, and the solution appears from a completely unrelated path. A strange pattern of numbers follows you. A song plays at the exact moment its lyrics answer the question on your mind. At first, you dismiss it. Coincidence, you say. A fluke. Nothing more. But then it happens again, and you begin to wonder, what if the universe is not silent? What if it speaks, but in signs, in patterns and perfect timing? This is the world of synchronicity, where inner thought and outer event align so precisely, so meaningfully, that they defy randomness. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who coined the term, described synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence, two events that are not causally linked, yet deeply connected through shared meaning. And for those paying attention, These moments are not rare, they're everywhere. Synchronicity is not magic, it's not superstition, it's alignment. It's what happens when your inner world tunes so closely to the outer world that the line between the two begins to dissolve. Let's start with attention. Your mind is a pattern detection machine. It scans the world constantly, looking for relevance. When you buy a new car, you suddenly see that model everywhere. When you learn a new word, it seems to appear in every conversation, not because the world changed, but because your focus did. Synchronicity begins here. It begins with awareness. But not every pattern is a synchronicity. True synchronicity carries a feeling, a pulse of meaning that feels both personal and universal. Like something clicked, like something saw you. It feels alive. And that feeling might be the most important clue, because in those moments, something bypasses logic and touches intuition. And intuition often knows what reason cannot explain. Why does the answer appear when you stop trying? Why does the stranger say exactly what you needed to hear, without knowing you needed it? Why does a delay lead you to an outcome better than what you originally planned? Synchronicity asks you to consider a deeper idea that you are not navigating a dead universe. You are moving within a living, responsive field, not one that grants every wish or avoids every hardship, but one that participates with you, subtly, intelligently, quietly. Some call it divine timing, others call it flow. Either way, the experience is the same. The sense that you are not pushing life forward with brute force, but being guided by something that knows more than you do. It doesn't mean you stop acting, but it changes how you act. You stop forcing, you start listening, you stop chasing, you start aligning. Synchronicity becomes the language of the in-between, the whispers that connect thought to reality, desire to opportunity, question to answer. It thrives on trust, not blind faith, but open presence. When you are clear in intention and relaxed in energy, synchronicity flows. But when you're tense, afraid, rigid, it fades, because synchronicity requires space. It needs room to unfold. Think of it like this. Your mind sends out signals through focus, emotion, expectation. Those signals interact with the field, and the field responds not always immediately, not always visibly, but in ways that match your frequency. When your thoughts, feelings, and actions are in coherence, reality begins to echo, not predictably, not controllably, but clearly. So how do you invite more synchronicity? You begin by noticing. Notice what repeats, what shows up unexpectedly, what feels charged with meaning, even if it seems small. The book that finds you, the quote that lands perfectly, the idea that arrives just before the need for it. These are not accidents. They are invitations. The next step, pay attention to how you feel when these things happen. Do you feel excited? Curious? A strange inner calm? That feeling is your compass. It's how the field speaks back. You don't need to understand every sign. You don't need to decode the entire pattern. You only need to notice what feels alive and take the next step. Synchronicity is a breadcrumb trail. It doesn't show you the whole path, just enough to keep you moving. And as you follow, you'll notice something else. Your timing improves. You begin to show up at the right place, say the right thing, meet the right person. Not because you're controlling events, but because you're aligned with them. This is not passive. It's participatory. You prepare, you act, you stay open, and the universe meets you. Sometimes in whispers, sometimes in waves, always in rhythm. Even difficulty can be synchronous. The closed door that redirects you, the delay that saves you, the loss that reveals something deeper. Synchronicity doesn't mean easy. It means meaningful. And meaning is the thread that turns life into story. So if you feel like you're just drifting through days, start listening for the echoes, the nudges, the signs, and ask, what is life trying to tell me right now? Because it may be that you're not alone in your becoming. It may be that the universe is not indifferent. It may be that your thoughts matter, not just inside your head, but in the unfolding of the world itself. And synchronicity is how that world begins to answer. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the ocean. Feel the cool breeze. Hear the waves pulling against the shore. See the horizon curve beneath a pink gold sky. Now, open your eyes again. Where did that ocean come from? Not from the room you're sitting in, not from the physical world outside. It came from inside you. And yet, for a moment, it felt real. That is the power of imagination. And it's time we stopped treating it like a child's toy. We often speak of imagination as if it's pretend, a place to visit when we're young, or bored, or artistic. But what if imagination isn't a fantasy space, but a creative interface between thought and form? What if your imagination is the sketchpad of reality? Let's start here. Everything human-made that exists began in someone's imagination. The airplane, the telephone, the poem that made you cry, the app you use every day, the building you live in. Each one started as an invisible image in someone's mind, a possibility not yet born. Imagination turned it from a whisper into something real. This is not play. It's power. Imagination is the mind's way of reaching into what could be and bringing it closer. It allows you to simulate, to rehearse, to create something from nothing, and the brain responds to imagined experiences, much like real ones. Athletes who visualize success improve performance. Musicians who imagine playing reinforce the same neural patterns as practicing. People who meditate and imagine healing report measurable physical changes. In the brain, imagined and experienced reality overlap. This tells us something important. Imagination is not fiction. It is possibility, rendered in thought. And possibility is the birthplace of change. When you're stuck in a pattern, imagination is the door. When you've lost hope, imagination lets you try on something new. When your outer world feels narrow, imagination stretches the walls. It says, maybe this isn't all there is. It dares to picture the world differently, and in doing so it makes that world more reachable. That's why fear tries to hijack imagination. It knows how powerful it is. Fear doesn't just react to what's real, it creates imagined futures. Paints vivid scenes of what might go wrong, of who might hurt you, of how you might fail, and your body responds to those imagined futures. Your heart races, your breath tightens, your mind spirals. That's imagination too, just misdirected. The mind, untrained, will imagine chaos. The mind, directed, can imagine anything. So the question becomes, what are you rehearsing in your inner world? Are you imagining loss or breakthrough, rejection or connection, the same old loop or something entirely new? Imagination is not passive. It is a creative act, and every time you choose to imagine something loving, bold, hopeful, you are rehearsing the frequency of that experience. You are tuning your brain, your energy, your posture to align with it. And slowly the line between imagined and real begins to blur. This is not delusion. It's the foundation of transformation. To imagine something different is to give your future a doorway. To imagine healing is to begin participating in it. To imagine peace is to become the place where peace might begin. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in science, art, and human evolution started as wild imaginings. Einstein famously said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." Why? Because knowledge tells you what is. Imagination dares to ask what might be, and without that question nothing new could ever arrive. Even in your personal life, change begins with imagination. To forgive someone, you must imagine what it would feel like to live without that burden. To set a new goal, you must imagine what achieving it could look like. To become the person you dream of being, you must first imagine that version of yourself, and then begin the process of becoming them. So imagination is not escape. It is strategy. It is spiritual technology. It is a tool given to you by consciousness to reshape the boundaries of your experience, and like any tool, it becomes stronger with use. The more you allow yourself to imagine freely, vividly, emotionally, the more flexible your mind becomes. The more willing it is to break from old molds. The more courageous it becomes in facing the unknown, because imagination trains you to explore uncertainty. Not with fear, but with curiosity. You begin to see problems as puzzles, challenges as maps, your own future as something you are not waiting to be handed, but building, moment by moment. Now, here's the paradox. The world will often treat imagination as naive, as if realism is wisdom and dreaming is foolish. But realism without imagination is just repetition. And in a world that is constantly evolving, repeating the past is the surest way to become stuck. To be truly alive is to imagine what's next. Not just for yourself, but for your relationships, your community, your planet. So let yourself imagine, not in fragments, not in hesitation, but fully. What would a beautiful day feel like? What would deep connection look like? What would a healed version of you walk like, speak like, move like? Try it. Not once. Daily. Not because it guarantees results, but because it changes your relationship with possibility. It reminds you that the future is not fixed, that you are not powerless, that within the silent, infinite space of your mind, there is a canvas waiting for vision. And the more you paint, the more the world begins to mirror what you dared to imagine. You spent your life asking questions, some out loud, some in silence. Why am I here? What does this mean? What should I do? Will it ever make sense? These questions aren't just curiosities. They are doorways. They emerge not just from the mind, but from something deeper, the part of you that seeks, that aches, that knows there's more. And here's the mystery. The answers you've been seeking are not hiding somewhere far away. They're not in a distant book or a perfect teacher. They are inside the one place you've carried with you all along. Yourself. You are not just the one asking the question. You are the space where the answer arrives. Let's begin there. Every time you ask a question, your mind begins to organize itself around it. It becomes alert, open, curious. And when curiosity deepens, it tunes your awareness. Suddenly, you notice clues you would have missed. Patterns begin to reveal themselves. The same way asking "where are my keys" makes your brain scan for a specific shape or color, asking a life question turns your entire being into a receiver. That means the act of asking is not weakness. It's wisdom. But too often, we're taught to rush for answers, to fix, to explain, to resolve. We forget that asking is its own form of intelligence, that holding a question without panic, without force, is an act of power. Some answers don't come in words, they come in experiences, in insights, in silence. They unfold like seeds growing only in the fertile space of patience and trust. And sometimes, the question is the transformation. To ask, "Who am I becoming?" already begins to reshape who you are. To ask, "What do I need to release?" loosens your grip. To ask, "Where is love moving through this?" invites it in. This is not passive, it's participatory. You're not sitting back waiting for a lightning bolt. You're becoming a living part of the answer itself. Your emotions, clues, your thoughts, signals, your challenges, invitations, your longings, compass needles pointing toward what's next. You're not just observing the journey, you are the journey. You're not a puzzle piece trying to you are the unfolding puzzle itself. Shifting, reshaping, revealing something new with each breath. And that means something important. You are not broken. You are becoming. Because even the most painful questions carry a gift. The moment you ask, "Why does this hurt so much?" you've already started healing. The moment you ask, "What am I here to learn?" you've already started growing. The moment you ask, "Can I live differently?" you've already started changing. The answer is not somewhere far down the road. It's in the asking. It's in the pause. It's in the you who is brave enough to listen. Now, let's take it deeper. What if the universe itself is not just a backdrop, but a collaborator? What if your questions shape the form it takes? Ask shallow questions, and you may receive surface answers. Ask deeper questions, and the very structure of your life begins to shift. Because when your soul asks something real, life responds. Maybe not right away, maybe not in the form you imagine, but the moment a true question rises, the universe begins rearranging, setting things in motion, moving people, shifting timing, nudging you toward a response that can only arrive through your participation. You are not separate from the answer you seek. You are part of how it arrives. That's why some answers only emerge through you, not to you, from outside, but through you, like music that needs an instrument to exist, and you are that instrument. The way you show up, the way you feel, the way you move, the way you fall and rise again, that is the shape the answer takes. You are the question, and you are the unfolding answer, simultaneously. This is why self-inquiry isn't self-indulgence. It's creation. When you ask, "What is my purpose?" you don't wait for a neon sign. You become it, through choices, through truth, through courage. When you ask, "What's real?" you peel back illusions. You tell deeper stories. You touch what matters. When you ask, "What's next?" you meet the edge of your becoming, and then you step forward. The mind wants certainty, but the soul wants depth. And sometimes, living the question is more powerful than rushing to answer it. So breathe. You don't have to figure it all out today. You only have to stay in it, open, honest, awake. Let your questions evolve. Let your answers surprise you. Let your path teach you what you didn't even know to ask. Because the truth is, who you are today is someone past who was seeking, and who you are becoming now is someone present you cannot fully imagine yet, but you're moving toward it, not by knowing everything, but by being willing to ask, willing to listen, willing to walk the space between question and answer with courage and faith. You are not lost. You are learning to translate the mystery. You are not waiting to be saved. You are learning to recognize the guide that lives inside you. You are not separate from wisdom. You are made of it. A question in motion, an answer unfolding, a universe listening, whispering, reflecting, becoming with you. Imagine walking through a field of tall grass. Each step bends the blades beneath your feet. Even after you've passed, the imprint remains for a moment, then slowly rises back. But not fully. A trace of your presence lingers. A soft, silent memory in the earth. Now imagine this. What if the universe itself is like that field? What if it remembers you, not just biologically, not just emotionally, but energetically? Across traditions, and now even within science, there's a growing suggestion that life operates within a field, a web of information, a memory system not bound by neurons or circuits but encoded in space, in energy, in form. Some call it the morphic field, a term coined by biologist Rupert Sheldrake. He proposed that memory is not just stored in brains, but in fields of influence, shaping behavior and form across space and time. Think of it like this. When one member of a species learns something new, others seem to learn it faster. When one group shifts in consciousness, distant groups begin to echo the change. It's as if something unseen is carrying knowledge, not through books, not through teaching, but through resonance. And what if that same field remembers you, your choices, your emotions, your patterns, your desires, not in a surveillance kind of way, but in a relational way? What if the universe holds a soft imprint of your being, responding, adjusting, evolving with you? You've felt it before. When a place holds a certain energy, when a room feels heavy after tension, when an object seems to carry a memory. These are not just poetic ideas. They are reflections of an ancient truth. Energy leaves residue, and consciousness is energy. When you love someone deeply, your bond doesn't end when they leave the room. Something lingers. When you forgive, something releases, not just in your mind, but in the emotional atmosphere around you. When you enter a space with full presence, that space changes. People feel it, the energy shifts. This is the field remembering. It's subtle, but it's real. And if that's true, it means your presence carries more weight than you think. Every thought you offer, every word you speak, every moment you show up with integrity, it's recorded, not in some cosmic ledger of judgment, but in the living memory of the whole. Just as a wave never leaves the ocean, you never leave the field. You are of it. So what do you leave behind? When you speak to someone with kindness, that moment may last seconds, but the impression could last a lifetime. When you believe in someone, even silently, that belief enters the space between you. When you choose love over fear, healing over reaction, you broadcast a frequency that echoes far beyond your skin. You may never see the full ripple, but it ripples just the same. This is why your healing matters, your growth, your forgiveness. Because it doesn't stop with you. You are entangled in the field. You are not isolated. Every shift you make creates a new possibility for yourself, for others, for the collective, and the field remembers. It remembers the courage it took for you to speak when your voice shook. It remembers the stillness you cultivated in chaos. It remembers the moment you chose truth, even when it cost you something. And it carries that imprint forward. This is not about ego. It's about responsibility. You matter, not because you're perfect, but because you are present. Because you are part of a field that is intelligent, living, and responsive. When you focus your thoughts, you add clarity to the field. When you offer your gifts, you add strength. When you release shame, you add freedom. When you trust, even when the path is unclear, you anchor possibility. Nothing is lost. Energy is not destroyed. It is transformed. So even the moments you regret, the times you wish you could erase, they too become compost. Fertile ground for new life, new thought, new being. And when you return to those places with awareness, with compassion, with light, you rewrite the field. You update the memory. You show the universe that transformation is not only possible, but inevitable. Now imagine this. If the field remembers you, you can also remember the field. You can tune into the quiet intelligence that surrounds you. You can sense the way certain thoughts click, certain ideas light up, certain paths feel right, even when logic says otherwise. This is not mysticism. This is participation. You are not just thinking inside your brain. You are thinking with the field, feeling with the world, becoming with something larger than yourself. And as you grow more aware of this relationship, you become more intentional in how you move. You begin to walk like someone who understands they are part of something sacred. You begin to speak like someone who knows their words matter. You begin to breathe like someone who knows each moment is a contribution. And suddenly, life is not random. It is relational. Every step you take adds something to the world that wasn't there before. Every quiet act of courage becomes part of the record. Not on paper, not in stone, but in energy, in the field, in the invisible memory of life that holds us all. So walk wisely, speak kindly, think clearly, forgive quickly, dream boldly, because even when you feel forgotten, even when no one sees, the field remembers. For most of your life you've been told that your brain is the center of intelligence, that thoughts live in the head, and feelings are something softer, something secondary felt in the chest, but governed from above. But what if the heart is more than just a metaphor? What if the heart is a mind too? Not poetic mind, not emotional shorthand, but a real, physical, measurable form of intelligence. A brain within the body, working in rhythm with the one behind your eyes. Let's begin with the science. The heart contains about 40,000 neurons, nerve cells that communicate, store information, and even generate their own signals. It has a nervous system of its own. It can sense, it can learn, it can remember. This isn't speculation. It's measurable. The heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And those signals affect attention, perception, emotion, and decision-making. In other words, your heart is not just a pump. It is a center of awareness, a powerful partner in the unfolding of your thoughts, your moods, and your experience of reality. When you are in a state of gratitude, love, or calm, the heart enters coherence. It beats in smooth, rhythmic patterns. This coherence creates harmony throughout your entire system, synchronizing your brain waves, stabilizing your hormones, and improving clarity of thought. But when you're anxious, angry, or disconnected, the rhythm becomes jagged. The brain and body fall out of sync. Clarity fades. Tension rises. You become reactive, scattered, closed. And the heart notices first. Long before your brain can name what you're feeling, your heart knows. It responds. It adjusts. That's why intuition often feels like something you feel in your chest. Because the heart doesn't just detect what is, it responds to what's coming. It is sensitive to resonance, to the subtle information in people, in choices, in places, It doesn't speak in language, but in knowing, not in facts, but in direction. And when you learn to listen to it, you begin to move differently, not just emotionally, but intelligently. You sense what is aligned. You pause before saying something that would cause harm. You lean in when truth is spoken, even if it's hard. You soften when you remember someone else's pain. You become more than logical. You become whole. This is not softness, it's strength. To lead from the heart is not to abandon reason, it is to expand it. To let your choices be informed by both insight and empathy, by clarity and connection. Because the heart doesn't just feel, it understands. And what it understands most deeply is relationship. Not just with others, but with the world, with the moment, with yourself. It asks questions the mind cannot. Does this feel right? Is this who I want to be? Does this create peace or division? Am I open or guarded, present or drifting? And when the heart leads, those questions become compass points. The mind is brilliant at problem solving, at structuring, at making sense of what is. But the heart is brilliant at sensing what matters. It doesn't calculate meaning, it feels it. And when you bring the two together, mind and heart, you begin to live with deeper intelligence. Not just smart, but wise. Not just quick, but whole. Not just reactive, but aligned. That alignment is what gives presence its power. When you walk into a room fully present, with your mind focused and your heart open, people feel it. They listen differently. They relax. They mirror the coherence you carry. That's not charisma. That's energetic alignment. It's the difference between saying something and meaning it, between hearing someone and feeling them, between existing and connecting. Because at the level of the heart, everything is relationship, and relationship is the foundation of reality. In physics, particles are not fixed objects. They are interaction. They exist, not alone, but in relation to other particles, to fields, to observation. In the same way, your identity is not fixed, it is relational. Who you are emerges from your interactions, with people, with ideas, with space, with presence. And the heart is your center for navigating that relational world. It is how you connect, not just to others, but to meaning itself. So how do you listen to it? Start with breath. Slow, deep, rhythmic. Breathe into your chest. Notice what softens. Ask a question, not with urgency, but with invitation. And then wait. Don't rush for answers. Listen for resonance. Does the thought of a decision bring tension or ease? Does the path ahead feel expansive or contracted? This is not guesswork. It's awareness. And over time it becomes a fluent language. The more you trust the heart, the more clearly it speaks. And it never lies. It may not always tell you what you want to hear, but it will always guide you toward integrity, toward healing, toward love. Even in grief, the heart speaks. Even in betrayal, it whispers truth. Even when the mind is lost in thought, the heart remains steady. You are not separate from this intelligence. You are made of it. So let the mind think. Let it analyze, process, plan, but let the heart lead. Because the heart is not weakness. It is wisdom, not a backup system, a core system, not an accessory, an anchor. And when you live from this place, something extraordinary begins to happen. You make decisions you don't regret. You hold space for things you don't fully understand. You offer kindness not because it's deserved, but because it's who you are. You begin to walk through the world with coherence, with a signal that the universe understands and responds to. Because in the deepest sense, the heart is not just a mind, it is the home of your highest intelligence.